The world changed forever in 1931. That was the year the Vita Carnis genus appeared, a collection of living, evolving anomalies that defy everything we understand about biology. Created by Canadian horror artist Darian Quilloy, Vita Carnis explores a world where flesh itself is adapted, mutated, and spread across the earth. Little is truly known about these creatures. The Canadian government has been infiltrated by a mysterious organization only known as the Cult, a group devoted to serving an entity called the Singularity, a being believed to control the evolution of the Vita Carnis species. What began as isolated discoveries of living flesh has become a full-scale biological phenomenon. In this video, we'll be looking deeper into the Vita Carnis creatures, their origins, and their threat levels. From strange living meat to intelligent predatory organisms, we'll uncover what humanity is truly up against. So stay alert, because in this world, even the ground beneath your feet might be alive. The crawl is one of the most fundamental members of the Vita Carnis family. Uniquely adapted to thrive in nearly every environment on Earth, it serves as the biological foundation from which all other Vita Carnis organisms grow, excluding only the monoliths and the Singularity. The Singularity itself has the ability to convert dead animals directly into new branches of the crawl, while the origins of the monoliths remain unknown. Physically, the crawl resembles a sprawling mass of fleshy, intestine-like tendrils. These tendrils vary in shade from bright to deep red, and they spread through environments in a manner similar to vines, mold, or fungal networks. Each growth begins from a main stem, which branches outward into thinner root-like tendrils. At the end of these tendrils are organelles designed to absorb moisture and organic matter. The crawl primarily feeds by drawing nutrients out of soil and decomposing material around it. Internally, each tendril contains its own arteries, veins, and organs dedicated to processing nutrients and distributing energy throughout its structure. In addition to this, the crawl performs its own form of photosynthesis. Smaller, darker branches absorb sunlight efficiently, further contributing to its energy production. The crawl is also highly reactive to signals. When an object produces any form of signal, the crawl instinctively grows towards it, enveloping the source before resuming its usual growth pattern. As it expands, the crawl occasionally forms nodes of meat along its branches. These nodules will eventually detach and live independently as smaller organisms, such as the trimmings. The life cycle of the crawl has drastically reshaped natural ecosystems. It absorbs animal and plant waste, enriches soil when its old branches decay, and increases overall plant growth in areas it inhabits. Herbivores feed on the increased vegetation, and in some cases directly on the crawl itself, while carnivores and omnivores benefit from the booming prey populations. This creates a surprisingly stable symbiotic environment where most life forms thrive. Humans have also learned to cultivate the crawl sustainably. When processed, it becomes a highly nutritious fertilizer, improving agricultural output. Technically, the crawl is edible as well, though its appearance and unpleasant taste prevent it from being accepted as a normal food source. The trimming is the second member of the Vita Carnis family, and one of the first organisms produced directly by the crawl. Whenever the crawl grows, trimmings are almost always present in abundance. A trimming is a small, fleshy creature with a turtle-like shape, and an overall appearance often compared to a skin raccoon. Like all members of the Vita Carnis family, it is composed almost entirely of meat tissue, giving it its uniform blood red coloration. Its body resembles that of a large tick, with a plump abdomen, small head, tiny ears, miniature eyes, and a wide gaping mouth. No two trimmings look exactly alike. Each possesses unique modifications, such as varying leg counts, different spike formations, or changes in size. Most trimmings measure around 20 centimeters, or 7.8 inches in length, roughly the size of a basketball. Despite their unsettling appearance, trimmings are passive and completely docile. Their only real defense is how uncanny they look. When faced with danger, a trimming may attempt to hide, flee, or emit a loud screech. They display surprisingly strong emotions, chattering their jaws when happy and screaming when distressed. Trimmings are nocturnal and notoriously noisy during the night, making them an unpopular option as pets, despite their harmless nature. Testing on trimmings has suggested that they share a form of hive mind. A trimming begins as a small, truffle-like meat node growing on the crawl. Once it reaches sufficient size, the node falls off and becomes fully mobile. From that point onward, the trimming feeds on anything edible it can find: fruits, vegetables, meat, roots, insects, seeds, and even rotten food. Their diet is completely indiscriminate. Trimmings grow quickly, reaching adulthood at just 7 months, and live up to 4 years. However, very few survive to old age. Their docility and lack of defenses make them easy prey for predators. Fortunately, the crawl continuously produces new trimming nodes, keeping their population stable. Trimmings have no biological purpose for humanity and pose no threat whatsoever. Instead, they are often viewed as nuisances, due to their screeching and habit of rummaging through trash, much like raccoons. Despite this, some people have taken advantage of their gentle nature, and have domesticated trimmings as household pets. The meat snake is the third member of the Carnis family, and is the second organism produced by the crawl. Meat snakes are found across the globe, though they are most commonly concentrated in regions with moderate climates. While similar in shape to an ordinary snake, the meat snake is composed almost entirely of flesh tissue, once again sharing the same blood red coloration as all other Carnis organisms. It is significantly larger than a typical serpent, averaging roughly 5 meters in length. Much like the trimmings, no two meat snakes are identical. Their primary variation comes from the skull they choose to wear. Over the course of its life, a meat snake will periodically replace its skull with the skulls of other creatures it consumes. It only swaps skulls if the previous one becomes damaged, or if it decides it prefers a new one. Otherwise, the skull is discarded as waste. A meat snake that has consumed a deer, for example, may adopt the deer's skull as its own. As it eats, the meat snake's flesh gradually deepens in color, but this change is extremely slow, requiring thousands of meals to become noticeable. The creature is protected by a vital fleshy membrane. If this membrane is broken, the meat snake dies. The meat snake is also known to have a foul, nauseating odor. The creator describes the smell as meat in a jar with apple cider vinegar left in sun for a week. A typical meat snake is shown to survive temperatures as low as -30 degrees Celsius, demonstrating impressive environmental resistance. During World War II, meat snakes were deployed on battlefields, released into no man's land. They consumed decomposing corpses after failed defenses, acting as organic disposal units. One of the most shocking discoveries regarding the species is the meat snake specimen featured in the meat snake specimen video. This colossal individual is found in an abandoned subway tunnel. Its body so massive that it filled the entire passage from floor to ceiling. Its length was initially unknown until researchers discovered the opposite end, accompanied by vast piles of human skeletons. These bones appeared to have been force-fed to the snake, likely during World War II, possibly by cults. Whether this was a work of the cult remains unknown. The specimen was still alive but too large to move. Its skull had mutated into a horrifying mass composed of multiple skulls from its victims. The meat snake behaves similarly to ordinary snakes, but has one defining difference. It only consumes dead organisms. It cannot and will not eat anything that is alive, making it unexpectedly safe to handle and even easy to domesticate. It becomes defensive only when threatened while feeding. The meat snake is the only Carnis organism with reproductive capabilities. When it becomes sufficiently large and is in the right environmental conditions, it undergoes mitosis, cloning itself completely. The two new meat snakes then separate and live as independent organisms. The meat snake poses no threat to humans. In fact, it benefits human society in several ways, such as safe disposing of rotting and expired meat, eliminating disease or decaying bodies in war zones, cleaning up dead animals in zoos, and consuming roadkill and preventing disease spread. For these reasons, meat snakes have been widely utilized in butcher shops, battlefields, and facilities dealing with large amounts of biological waste. Meat snakes pose little threat due to their diet and will only defend themselves if they must. The mimic is the fourth member of the Carnis family, and the third organism created by the crawl. It is also the first hostile species within the Vita Carnis genus. Mimics appear most often in nearly densely populated areas, as adult mimics rely on human flesh once they reach full maturity. Physically, a mimic resembles a skinned human with exaggerated and deeply unsettling features. Their bodies are long, thin, and damp, with sunken black eyes, flat noses, long fingers, and a wide mouth filled with numerous sharp teeth. This wide smile is not an expression, but simply the structure of the creature's face. Their limbs and joints are extremely flexible, allowing them to contort themselves into cramped spaces or expand their bodies to appear larger and more intimidating. A mimic begins its life as a juvenile, breaking off from the crawl in a form that resembles a thin, sleek trimming, with 4 small limbs and bulging eyes. During this stage, it hunts using surprise, initially targeting small creatures before moving up to larger prey as it approaches metamorphosis. Juvenile mimics kill quickly by striking the jugular, and once they reach a certain size, they undergo a drastic transformation into their adult form. As adults, mimics abandon all smaller prey and become exclusively human hunters. Once a mimic reaches adulthood, it may develop in one of 2 ways depending on its access to food. If it feeds consistently on humans, it advances into a humanoid mimic, beginning to take on more human-like features in order to blend into society. These mimics disguise themselves with clothing, hoodies, jackets, and everyday attire to hide their unnatural proportions. While they can resemble deformed humans, they can still be identified by their bulging eyes, long fingers, damp skin, and strange walking posture. However, their human-like structures make them efficient predators within crowds and public spaces. If the mimic instead gains an overabundance of food, it evolves into an elder mimic, a far more advanced and dangerous form. Elder mimics develop a thick, dark, flexible shell that resists most handheld weapons, and their faces transform into a pale, bony mask. Their teeth retreat deeper into their throat, while the front mouth becomes a sharp beak used to tear flesh from the bone. These adaptations allow elder mimics to blend perfectly into the darkness and strike with terrifying speed. Because of their efficiency, power, and resilience, elder mimics are considered some of the deadliest predators on Earth, and are referred to by the cult as God's ultimate warrior. Despite the differences between stages, all mimics share certain hunting behaviors. Adult and humanoid mimics begin their hunt by selecting a target and infiltrating their home. They lurk in the shadows for long periods, watching their victims' habits and waiting for the moment of vulnerability, usually when the person is asleep or distracted. They prefer swift and silent kills to avoid alerting others. If the victim is awake, the mimic may attempt to startle or hurt them using unsettling noises and movement, forcing them into a corner or enclosed space. Mimics hide inside furniture in tight spaces such as sofas, wardrobes, or any object large enough to conceal their body. Once cornered prey secured, the mimic strikes, consuming its meal, and retreats into isolation to digest. Attempting to fight one is rarely successful, and most encounters end in fatality. Commonly known as a harvester, this organism is the 5th member of the Carnis family, and the 4th creation of the crawl, unique for being the only product that does not detach as a node. It is also the 2nd hostile species within the Carnis genus. Harvesters inhabit sparsely populated regions across the northern hemisphere, most often in dense woodland forests. The creature resembles a massive, plant-like mass of flesh centered around a swollen bulb that stands roughly 3 meters tall and over 2 meters wide. From this central structure extends an advanced network of blood-red tendrils that can stretch as far as 150 meters through the surrounding terrain, allowing the harvester to sense and target prey well beyond its immediate location. The harvester's tendrils fall into 2 biological roles. The first type is thick, flat, and positioned closest to the surface, armed with spines shaped like fleshy bear traps. Each spine contains veins that inject 2 types of venom. One side delivers a neurotoxin that causes sudden paralysis, while the other supplies an anticoagulant that prevents the victim's blood from clotting. As the tendrils thrash violently, these spines inflict numerous wounds, ensuring that the prey quickly becomes immobilized and eventually bleeds to death. The second type of tendril mirrors the nutrient-absorbing branches of the crawl. These slender extensions sense spilled blood and will worm toward it, siphoning nutrients before curling around the corpse and dragging it beneath the soil, where the harvester digests it completely. Harvesters are born when a node from a crawl grows outward instead of detaching, eventually forming its own tendrils, while remaining dependent on its parent organism for energy. Though rooted in place, the harvester can slowly migrate to new locations when nutrients run low, a behavior initially implied through documented sightings and later confirmed by the author. It also displays a high degree of energy efficiency in selective hunting. Only large prey are considered worth its metabolic cost. Smaller animals are ignored, allowing them to thrive in the harvester's radius, and inadvertently attract bigger creatures that fall victim to its traps. When it drags its kills underground, the harvester deliberately leaves remaining flesh and fluids to enrich the soil, creating an ecological hotspot that lures more wildlife into its reach. Neutralizing a harvester is surprisingly straightforward. The entire system depends on the integrity of the central ball. Damaging it incapacitates the tendrils instantly. If the venom sac ruptures, the poison acts on the harvester itself, killing the creature. Despite this vulnerability, harvesters remain protected, due to the cult's infiltration of the government systems. Even after one harvester killed 2 members of a family during the species anomaly report, their deaths were ignored and screams captured on film. The government still refused to authorize neutralization efforts. The host of influence is the 6th member of the Carnis family, and the 5th product developed from the crawl. This organism appears in select regions of North America, though sightings remain rare. The host's body resembles a distorted semi-human form, consisting of a head, torso, and 2 arms. Yet, beyond this basic outline, it shows no similarity with human anatomy. Instead of legs, its lower body is composed of dense, fibrous tissue, and tendrils that burrow deep within the soil, anchoring the host firmly in place. Its body is covered in exposed muscle, tendon, and vein tissue, reinforced in several areas by thick, fleshy plates that provide protection without restricting movement. The head lacks any facial features, and is completely smooth, with a crooked neck that leads to a slit on the front, which the host uses to feed. On its back, a cluster of pores houses thin, hair-like tubes that function as spore-releasing barrels. These spores are at the core of the host's weaponry. When the host decides to hunt, it emits a cloud of spores into the air, allowing the wind to carry them across long distances. Any creature that inhales these spores unknowingly becomes infected, as the spores migrate to the brain. In the early stages, no immediate changes occur, but after a few hours, the victim begins to suffer from restlessness, sluggish movement, joint numbness, and poor coordination. As the infection progresses, symptoms escalate into dizziness, migraines, tremors, and impaired speech. After roughly 6 to 7 hours, the infected individual's behavior deteriorates, to the point that they abandon whatever they are doing and wander directly towards a host whose spores they inhaled. Upon reaching it, they will kneel, voluntarily expose their vital organs, and the host will kill them and consume them. If the infected individual receives treatment or simply fails to reach the host within 36 hours, the spore's influence fades, and the organism returns to normal. When prey becomes scarce, or when the host deems its current location unsuitable, it is capable of uprooting itself and slowly relocating to a new territory, where it will embed its tendrils into the ground once again, and resume its predatory cycle. The Monolith is the 7th member of the Carnis family, and the 4th hostile organism within it. Whether it originates from the Crawl or the Singularity remains unknown. All 7 known monoliths were discovered in June of 1972, on a secluded island in Hudson Bay, Canada. Each monolith stands at an immense height of 120 meters, appearing as a colossal tower of densely woven meat fibers supported by 2 thick trunk-like legs. Along its sides hang countless long, rope-like appendages that drag across the ground. The creature's deep red coloration matches that of other Carnis organisms. At its peak, the strands of flesh converge to form a rigid triangular head, pierced by a circular hole that serves as its defining feature. Its legs are rooted so deeply into the earth that they form a massive subterranean network connecting all monoliths together, making it impossible to remove or dislodge one using any modern technology. Though silent in the present day, the monolith is capable of producing a deafening roar from the orifice of its head, a sound that has only ever been recorded during its initial activation event, leading some to speculate that the hole may also function as the source of its electromagnetic pulse. All 7 monoliths remain fixed in an enormous ring, standing perfectly still around a circle 1.5 kilometers in diameter, with the Singularity positioned at the center. Each monolith is spaced evenly at roughly 0.67 kilometers apart. During its first activation event, the monolith displayed extreme aggressive behavior. It swung its many appendages with tremendous force, unleashing devastating blows, and emitted an EMP blast strong enough to disable vehicles in the area. When military forces attempted to neutralize it by launching a rocket at its leg, the damage regenerated within seconds, revealing its extraordinary healing ability. Little is known about the monolith's life cycle, as no crawl-produced node has ever developed into one, nor have monoliths been observing reproducing in any capacity. What is certain is that the monolith serves no benefit to humanity. Instead, its overwhelming size, destructive capabilities, and unknown origins make it a monumental threat, one capable of endangering the entire planet should it ever become active again. The Singularity is the 8th and final member of the Carnis family, and the most mysterious. 7 Singularities exist in total, originally scattered across the world but later secured by the Hudson Bay Singularity is the most significant, as it was surrounded by the ring of 7 monoliths, suggesting a deeper connection between them. Singularities demonstrate extraordinary intelligence and appear to constantly strategize, think, and communicate through unknown electromagnetic signals. Each singularity, designated V-1 through V-7, has undergone testing, with V-1 being the most heavily studied. These beings were central to the cult's plan, particularly during the Facility-0 incident, where cultists gathered all 7 for a ritual. When infiltrated, their body cams malfunctioned due to the interference. But a single frame showed the cultists performing a sacrifice, one so important that they refused to stop even after agents breached the room. After the Facility-0 raid, they finally had control of all 7 singularities and began experimentation to understand their true nature. Their earliest tests were simple, inserting a living cow and then a dead cow into V-1's chamber. The living animal showed no change, but the dead one transformed into the crawl, confirming that the singularities can biologically convert dead organisms. However, despite numerous follow-up tests, researchers could still not determine what these entities truly are. A breakthrough occurred accidentally when a janitor fractured his femur inside V-1's chamber. The singularity grew agitated, releasing energy pulses that overwhelmed the facility's systems. When a guard entered the chamber to check up on it, his radio picked up electromagnetic patterns from V-1 that formed rudimentary speech. This revealed that the singularities could communicate through electronics. Using this discovery, Dr. Trudeau set up a device to allow two-way communication. And although V-1's vocabulary was limited, it gradually learned more about its personality, preferences, and intelligence. The singularities in return learned human language and familiarized themselves with electronics like radios and televisions. Physically, a singularity is a 1-meter sphere made of a dark, glass-like mineral surrounding a radiant inner core. It levitates effortlessly and emits complex magnetic fields, energy patterns, and signal-like readings. Despite their influence, singularities themselves have little defensive abilities. They cannot physically move or fight, as shown when V-1 remained passive inside the lab. However, they express agitation through electromagnetic disruption, causing equipment failures whenever startled or distressed. They also possess the ability to convert any nearby dead flesh into crawl, and this lab-grown crawl has an unusually high chance of producing new Carnis species. Their sentience, communication abilities, and control over the Carnis ecosystem make the Singularities the true leaders of the genus, and the most enigmatic anomalies on Earth.
Detach from them. They have used up their worth.
Not like you.
Go now. Your passion has spared you. Step, march, action,
Hold on, it appears that several objects have flown out through smoke. We have to go.
If you made it this far, you've survived a journey through some of the most disturbing organisms ever discovered. At least for now. The world of Vita Carnis is still expanding, and every new revelation feels more terrifying than the last. If you want to dive deeper into this flesh-born nightmare, or other horrors, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment what you want me to cover next. Until then, stay aware, stay alive, and until next time, friends.